Welcome to 10-Minute Astrology, a weekly video series designed to introduce you to the principles of astrology and its components in a fun and easy-to-understand way. I'm Amy Herring. I'm a professional astrologer in Seattle. You can find me on the web at heavenlytruth.com. If you'd like to schedule a reading or find out about personal one-on-one tutoring sessions, you can do so at my website. During this series, we will be discussing natal astrology only, which is a branch of astrology that focuses on the life of an individual. The principles in this series will be introduced from the perspective of evolutionary astrology, which is a tradition that focuses on your spiritual growth and development, past life karmic issues, and present life purpose. Each episode is only 10 minutes long, and a new episode will be available each week on my website. Hello and welcome to 10-Minute Astrology. This is episode 3, and today we'll be discussing the three main components of astrology in brief: planets, signs, and houses, and the unique role they serve in putting together the puzzle of a chart. We'll spend this episode looking at the overall picture, and then spend a great deal of time in future episodes talking about each planet, sign, and house in depth. In 2006, the International Astronomical Union voted on the official requirements to call something a planet, astronomically speaking, which is frankly still in controversy, but up until then, the term planet has essentially meant wandering star, which is a phrase used to distinguish the heavenly bodies that are close enough to us that they appear to move around the sky, versus the fixed stars that are so far away from us they've appeared to stay in the same place in the sky, in relation to the other stars. Such as a constellation, a group of stars that may seem to form a picture, and they've kept their form over time. They don't wander around the sky individually like planets do. Now, when referring to planets in an astrological context versus an astronomical one, they are the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Astrologically, the word planet is just a convenient word to use for the primary heavenly bodies that are studied and considered in a chart. Now, it's important to note that there are many other planetary bodies, and even mathematically calculated points that don't even have a corresponding rock in the sky, and those are also used by some astrologers. But since this is a beginning astrology course, we're going to keep it simple for the time being. The planets represent the basic driving forces that are within us all, as part of the human experience. While our personalities and life experiences will differ, there are commonalities that we all face. Let's take a nutshell look at each planet and the basic driving force that it represents. The Sun represents the urge to build an identity, to have a centered sense of who we are and who we're not. The Moon represents the desire to feel safe, happy, and taken care of, to nurture and to be nurtured. Mercury represents the urge to learn, to communicate. Venus represents the urge to relate to someone or something, to feel a sense of connection. Mars represents the urge to make our will known. It's our motivation, how we go after what we want, and our urge to defend ourselves when necessary. Jupiter represents the urge to explore and reach our potential, the need to grow bigger and develop trust in the process of living. Saturn represents the urge to achieve through applying ourselves, as well as the need for structure, boundaries, and definitions to make sense of the world around us. Uranus represents the urge to individuate, to understand and express ourselves in an individual context as apart from a societal or cultural context. Neptune represents the urge to connect to a higher state of awareness, often through attunement with a sense of the divine. Pluto represents the urge to transform ourselves as we let go of fear and step into a sense of our own power and a sense of a greater purpose. Now, as we've learned from episode 2, the signs represent sections of sky along the path of the zodiac. The 12 signs represent how the planetary urges are expressed, our style. If the planets are the what, then the signs represent the hows and the whys. So we all have a part of us that Venus represents, and that's the urge to connect to others. But what makes us feel connected to someone? What makes us like someone? That'll be different for you, for me, for them. And the signs tell us about those differences in style. In a nutshell, the signs represent the following processes, characteristics, and styles. Aries represents the process of learning courage and strength of will. Taurus represents the process of learning peace and inner security. Gemini represents the process of exercising curiosity, open-mindedness, and learning as much as possible. Cancer represents the process of exploring the heart and inner life, frequently through emotional and domestic connections with loved ones. Leo represents the process of learning to express oneself and engagement with life. Virgo represents the process of self-examination and self-improvement. Libra represents the process of learning balance and harmony in life, in ideas, and especially between people. Scorpio represents the process of investigating beneath the appearances of things, seeking the deeper answers of life and in the psyche. Sagittarius represents the process of learning one's own sense of what is true through personal experience and spontaneity. Capricorn represents the process of discovering a sense of authority through self-mastery. Aquarius represents the process of learning to discover and follow one's own unique path through experimentation. Pisces represents the process of learning to open up to the mystical side of life, seeing a bigger picture than just the material plane. The houses represent areas of life, the circumstances, events, and activities we engage in through the process of living in the world, like the stage on which our lives play out, and the props and plot lines. If planets are the what, and the signs explain the style, the hows and whys, then the houses signify the wheres. This includes things like home life, work life, spiritual life, relationship life, etc. So if Venus, the planet representing the urge to relate, finds itself in Gemini, the sign representing the process of intellectual exploration and curiosity, we might find someone who enjoys relating to people through stimulating conversation most of all, connecting to people that are witty and intelligent. If Venus, in Gemini, finds itself in the 6th house, the house of work process, then they may find that they most enjoy using their skills of connecting with others through conversation and information sharing as a job skill or in their working environment. In a nutshell, the houses represent the following areas of life. The 1st house represents activities that focus on the self. The 2nd house represents activities that focus on one's resources and not just material resources. House 3 represents activities that focus on learning and communication. The 4th house represents activities that focus on inner and home life. The 5th house represents activities that focus on having fun and creative self-expression. The 6th house represents activities that focus on the process of working and utilizing our skills. The 7th house represents activities that focus on one-on-one relationships. The 8th house represents activities that focus on exploring and managing our deepest fears. The 9th house represents activities that focus on higher education and systems of understanding. The 10th house represents activities that focus on connecting with our calling. The 11th house represents activities that focus on our goals, our future, and our allies. The 12th house represents activities that focus on inner and spiritual life. Putting a planet in a sign and then in a house comes up with a unique combination of how that urge in us expresses itself best, and understanding that combination can help us know how to express those urges in the most fulfilling way possible. Now remember, these one-sentence descriptions of each of the components represents a vast and rich topic, each on their own. And they'll each have their own episode entirely devoted to them, so don't be worried if these loaded sentences were overwhelming. We'll dive deeply into them in future episodes. Till then, keep looking up.